Hey, good evening, everyone. State Representative Brad Halbrook here, along with a great team. As we enter into our Tuesday night roundtable and live stream, we're going to have a rather robust discussion about last week's State of the State and budget speech. And with that, Leader, Chairman, Representative Chris Miller, what's going on?
Well,
Welcome.
it's great to be here. We're enjoying. It almost feels like Florida. It's so warm out. We're in the process of getting ready to capture millions of pounds of carbon dioxide as our green leafy plants begin to grow in this new growing season we have. But looking forward to the conversation about the giveaway programs that JB introduced. I know that we had that conversation that there were more handouts than there are at the grand opening of the local Walmart. So we're looking forward to hearing that. So move on. I'm done.
Right, exactly. All right. And Dan Caucus from Decatur, welcome.
Oh, it's great. Well, we're enjoying the week off here between sessions. I think we get back in there next Tuesday. It's going to be pretty intense as this budget process unfolds, plus all the other bad bills that we're dealing with. But yeah, we're looking forward to it. It's great to be here. We survived the governor's State of the State budget address, but I'm not sure Illinois will.
Right, exactly. And we are fortunate tonight to be joined by our state director of the Illinois Freedom Caucus, keeping the fires burning there. Colin Mosley, welcome. What's happening?
Hey, good to be here. Just as always, enjoying continuing the fight for freedom. I think that Dan summed up the budget address scenario pretty well. It was pretty hard to sit through that speech last Wednesday in Springfield, but it's going to be a lot harder for people to sit through the financial instability of our state if this budget is anything like what the governor proposed in the coming year.
Right. Exactly. Well, and to that point, let's get into our slides this evening and see if I get everybody here in the queue, right? So tonight's about the budget address last Wednesday. And with that, here's our first slide. Gentlemen, what did the governor decide to do but spend more money? I know we're all stunned by that.
No, at least he's very predictable, because I know that I did a Facebook Live video to let everybody know what the governor was going to say before he said it, because it was all extremely predictable. More taxes, more borrowing, more spending, more putting the lipstick on a pig. And so, and the thing that blows my mind is that since I've been in office, I've seen our budget grow by $14 to $15 billion, depending on whose numbers you're going to use. A piece of paper obviously will hold still for anything when the governor begins to say that we have a balanced budget for however long this nightmare has been that he's been in office. But it was very predictable, and there's no way that you can continue to spend the massive amounts of money that he is with any fiscal sanctity. And so, it's all predictable, and we're in trouble.
Exactly. Dan, these 3 bullet points below the $52 billion number, very telling. The 4.5% increase amounts to $2.3 billion increase. Your thoughts here with an increase of $2.3 billion, we got a deficit. What's your thoughts?
Well, I think that what we've seen with this budget address is exactly what we've seen for the last 6 years. It's all a wish list. It's all social engineering. We're transferring money out of the road fund into some other areas, calling it transportation. I think it's the RTA up into Chicago. So we're giving them some property tax relief, so to speak, or fair relief at the expense of our roads and bridges. It's hypocritical, if not criminal. We did a little analysis, and over the last 6 years, inflation has increased about 25%, a little less. So if you had $100 and you bought something for $100 6 years ago, yeah, you would only be able to spend $75 on that today, or it would cost you $125 today, however you wanted to look at it. This governor's budget, again, it increased over 35% over the same time period. So we're outstripping inflation. We're crippling small families. We're stealing money out of accounts that should be used to take care of the people of Illinois. It's really despicable, and what this governor is proposing.
Right, exactly. And Colin, to top it off, nearly $1 billion of tax and fee increases that hits employers, job creators, just hits on a lot of people. We've got the worst tax burden in the nation, whether you want to say it's the worst or the best. I mean, it's just horrible what's going on here, how the governor plans to piece this all together. What's your thoughts? What have we missed here so far?
Well, I don't think you've missed anything. And I know that the next slide touches on this too. But when you have a governor who is so self-centered and is so prideful that he just simply cannot bring himself to ever admit that there is a significant problem that has been inflamed the last few years, and that problem being the loss of tax revenue. So the governor, it's all smoke and mirrors. The governor comes out and says, hey, here's our sixth balanced budget. Well, we're not going to mention the fact that it only will be balanced if he can convince the General Assembly to pass $1 billion in tax and fee increases. So that's the kind of games we play in Springfield. And the unfortunate reality is, as we'll talk about later, the budget's going to change. We know that. But the unfortunate reality is billionaire governors like JB can flex their checkbooks to the General Assembly and get a lot more things done than they should be able to.
Yeah, excellent points. And before we go to the next slide there, guys, I just want to touch on this thing. This budget is balanced, just to pile on with what Colin said. It is is balanced by things that aren't even law yet.
Again.
Okay, this is the way they do things
Again,
in Springfield.
I mean, this isn't the first time, Brad.
Oh, no. This is just, like Chris says, it's predictable, right? You know exactly where they're going to go. Just, yeah.
So,
yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Next slide. Revenue losses. We've seen and talked about the population. Gentlemen, I'll just throw it open. You guys just kind of have at whoever wants to discuss these few bullet points on this slide.
Well,
go ahead, Colin.
I was just going to say, it may sound like a broken record, but the governor continues to deny population loss. And the only reason now that I can think of is because he's replacing it with illegal immigrants. But when you lose a congressional seat, the proof is in the pudding, and that's that's hundreds of thousands of people worth of tax revenue. So it's just the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, and we've seen this. The IRS knows where people pay their taxes, and they know that if you paid your taxes in Illinois 3 years ago and you're making $150,000 a year, and now you're paying those taxes in Iowa or Kentucky or wherever, that's a huge loss, not just in taxes, but also in discretionary spending and sales tax and property tax, gas tax. I mean, it's a huge discretionary loss. And it's continuing. I mean, there's nothing that has stemmed the flow of people out of our state, and for Governor Pritzker and the Democrats to think that this is going to end well. It's not. This is going. I think that, Brad, I think this is going to be one of the toughest budget negotiations, and unfortunately, we're not included. But I think the Democrats have a real problem this year. And I'm not sure how they're going to resolve it.
Right. You got 78 members that are divided between 7 or 8 different groups of people there, and they all have different priorities. And for them to try to manage and match that all up with this budget that's almost, it is over $2 billion increase. The migrant situation continues to grow and swell. The spending, the battle between the governor and the mayor of Chicago about how this all works. Guys, they've got their hands full.
The only way that you can fix a problem is to admit that you have a problem. And so far, the Democrats have been in complete denial about all the things that all the big mess that they've created in their non-reality universe. Because the fact is, we did lose a congressional seat, which means that we lost a minimum of 750,000 people. And the projections are in the next census that we're going to lose another congressional seat and possibly two. And so, until you come to grips with those people are leaving because of bad public policy, because life gets better at any point of the compass if you just move across the state line, and until they will own the problem and the issues, there's no remedy to fix it because they refuse to address the problem.
Right. And guys, I've repeated this theme over and over. This is no secret. I didn't coin this, but I think it's important that people know, like you said earlier, the governor is in denial that this stuff's happening. And then he starts making excuses, right? Well, it's the winners, it's this or that, it's anything but what the reality is. And then the third round of the governor, he says, well, it's happening to everybody. Well, it's not happening in Wisconsin or Indiana or Missouri or Iowa or Kentucky. They're
Right.
growing.
Or Tennessee.
Illinois is the greatest economic development tool or engine a neighboring or southern state can have.
That's
It's true.
Yeah.
Next slide. We've worked that one over. Next slide. Illegal immigration, no plan to stop the flow. Property tax relief or the lack thereof. Guys, we'll just kind of open this up. I know we've kind of worked on the immigration thing a lot here the last several months with the trip to the border in January and a trip to Chicago on one of the coldest days of the year back in the middle of January. This is a huge deal. I mean, the 180 million is just new spending. That's on top of the 2 billion plus or minus that is going to be spent over the last year and a half and will be spent in the coming year and a half.
Well, yeah, no, this is outrageous theft of services. I mean, this is what's happening. The Democrats are going to steal money from the citizens of Illinois that should be used to improve our life, to reduce our taxes, to improve services, to help pay for our employees a living wage. And they're giving it to these people that aren't here legally, illegal immigrants. They're not going to be allowed to stay. When their day comes to have to go to court, they're not going to be allowed to stay in this country. And so why are we delaying this? Why are we putting that off? It's theft. I mean, they're stealing from us, the taxpayers.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's totally
Yeah.
true. And the other thing on that front that Dan mentioned, we are at an astronomical figure financially. Imagine what we could be doing for Illinois citizens and Illinois business if we had an extra $2.5 billion over the last 3 years to spend it on. And further, the governor in his budget address, I think somewhere around the time that he called us doom grifters, he mentioned that these 35,000 asylum seekers, that's complete garbage. There's 35,000 new arrival illegal immigrants in the state of Illinois, and the stats tell us that maybe a couple thousand of them would be classified as have even a case to argue they're asylum seekers. The other 30-some thousand are simply illegal immigrants, and we are spending. I couldn't even imagine what the rate per immigrant we're spending on these people, but it's absolutely insane.
If they're truly asylum seekers, they're going to come in the right way, come through go through the proper procedures and proper channels. All these people are criminals that are invading our state.
And they're clogging the system. I think we mentioned this in our press conference, and I think it was maybe Blaine Wilhauer who said it. These people are actually doing a disservice to the true asylum seekers. I mean, you've got 30,000 people who are illegitimate asylum seekers that are clogging the system for the couple thousand who might have a real case. Right. And now the state of Illinois wants to appropriate money to pay for the legal fees of of people arguing they're asylum seekers.
Right.
It goes on and on and on.
And this isn't going to go away.
No.
I mean, these people are going to be in our country until they get their court date, till they get to their adjudication. And as we know, that could be 3, 4, 5 years down the road, 6 years. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with this tens and tens of thousands of people in Illinois for the next 5 or 6 years? Nobody's talking about that.
Maybe they're going to move into the Hyatt hotel chain. That'd be a good place for him. Let JB be benevolent with his own money.
There you go. So, guys, something we did not hear in the budget speech, which was really, really vital. We continue to get email and calls about, not necessarily about no property tax relief, even though that is a big factor, but the invest in kids was not even brought up. So it's okay that we're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to care for illegal aliens, people that don't have a right to be in this country, but we can't even eke out a program for the kids in most need of a better educational opportunity. There's just no prospect of that when it comes to invest in kids. And again, more money for social engineering when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. What a farce. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
I agree. I think it show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. And obviously this governor's budget does not prioritize the citizens, the businesses of Illinois. It prioritizes his social engineering experiments and his desire to run for president. His State of the State speech was a campaign speech. I mean, he attacked us, he attacked Christians, he attacked the conservatives, he even attacked Governor Newsom, his number one challenger for the Democrat nomination for president. So, I mean, this is a thinly veiled campaign speech. And we haven't even touched on that. And I think we need to. We need to talk about this grocery tax thing as well, Brad.
Yeah. So we'll bring that slide back up. Once again, 2 years ago when it was cool in the election of 2022, the governor granted some property tax relief. And while we applaud the governor for his desire to cut taxes, we didn't really think it was cool, the gimmickry that he used during the election. But the issue here with this one is this only affects our local units of government to the tune of about $400 million a year. So the governor acted like he was here to save the day with this great tax relief. But again, it's no skin off his back here. This is affecting local units of government. But again, what Springfield did 2 years ago is they backfilled or reimbursed or made whole the local units of the government all that money that was supposed to be collected. So we think that's a great idea to do that. We need the relief, but the government or Springfield needs to do what they need to do to make this work right for local units.
Yeah, it's typical. This is a typical pass the buck deal. The governor, the Democrats can walk around and pound their chest that, by golly, we got tax relief. We cut the grocery sales tax, the 1% sales tax. We're on the side of the working man. Yeah, until those communities go, well, wait a minute, that's a $2 million shortfall in our budget. And there's only one way for them to make that up. Well, there's two ways, actually. They could increase taxes on this, or they could up the property tax bill. So this is one of these. What is it? You see the guy on the street corner with the 3 shells and the P, and follow the shell and what's under the deal, and yeah, you can never win because it's a sleight of hand, and that's what this is. And I think it's going to be called out for that. I don't think these communities are going to let even the Democrats do this.
Right. Gentlemen, any closing thoughts on this before we move to the next slide? All right, here's the last slide. I believe this is the last slide. Kind of the final analysis here, what we're going to see as we go back to Springfield next week. Budget hearings, I think, will start next week when we go back in early March. But again, this is kind of hopefully telling and revealing. But again, the real budget work is done in secret. Republicans have consistently been locked out. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I think if you
That's
all of the,
stunned.
go ahead.
No, we're stunned.
Well, it's like we've talked about earlier, is JB Pritzker is extremely predictable. I mean, everybody needs to remember that JB Pritzker is a billionaire. He's not concerned about his grocery bill. He's not concerned about his electric bill. He's not concerned about how much he has to pay for a gallon of gas. He's not concerned about anything that we're all concerned about as hardworking middle class Americans. And almost everything that he has done has made the quality of life issues very front and center, because he's destroyed safety and security, he's destroyed quality education, he's destroyed our energy independence, and he's just, because of that, all those things above, he's destroyed our opportunity. And to me, it's shameful what this governor has done to the everyday working class people of the state of Illinois, because almost just about every one of his policy negatively impacts the working man that goes to work every day, is trying to raise his family, trying to pay his bills, trying to make a positive contribution to both Illinois and yet he's got his thumb on the scales, and he's making life harder and harder and harder, and he needs to be fired and go find a different line of work.
I don't think he's at
Yeah,
work.
and
I don't know that he understands.
Well, that's true.
You know-
Sorry, we need to rephrase that.
Go back into the life of luxury, or he can certainly come down to the Miller family farm and muck some stalls and herd up some cattle and get that planter lined out. Maybe paint some fences.
Yeah.
Be good for him. It'd be good for him to get outside.
They probably would accept him as one of their own.
No.
It's a
well, gentlemen, this budget doesn't do anything when it comes to population loss. Doesn't do anything to deal with the debt, the pension deficit. That's hundreds of billions, not millions, but billions with a B. Doesn't do anything about that. I just think it's absurd. And they talk about, well, we're going to put $10 million into this or that is hundreds of billions of dollars underwater. It doesn't do anything about that, but yet it sounds good.
And this is what actually drives up property taxes, is that $200 billion plus that just continues to swell year over year over year. I mean, the only good news we have, I suppose, for the state of public pensions is that as years go on, we're going to have more and more people that are in tier 2. But now we're hearing from the policymakers that have the sort of the power in the pensions committee that they want to do away with tier 2, which is going to add billions of dollars on top of the debt we already have if they were to ever actually do that. So they're thinking backwards, not forward. This is addition for them, not subtraction.
Well, this is exactly what's happened, though, under the Edgar pension ramp and all of this stuff. How do we save instead of doing the hard work and actually reforming the pensions, they came up with this tier 2 scheme. And it was known at the time, and we've said it over the last 6 years, that when the tier 2 pension doesn't meet the test, the Social Security test, Illinois is going to get hammered. The federal government is going to hammer the state of Illinois because that budget scheme, that tier 2 pension, doesn't meet their obligation that they made with the federal government. And who's going to make up the difference? The communities. They're the ones that are contributing to these pensions. And when this whole thing falls apart, it's going to bankrupt. I mean, it's going to absolutely decimate our small towns. And places like Decatur, I think, and Bloomington. They're not going to be able to make up that difference in that pension. And that's the only place that money can come from, unless the state of Illinois wants to stop, I mean, we're already, what'd you say, Brad, $2 billion upside down on our pensions. Imagine what happens when you eliminate tier 2. We should have addressed this thing. Jim Edgar's really screwed this state.
Well, it worked for him because still today, everybody says, well, Jim Edgar's the last greatest governor we've had. And I said, well, let's talk about that. Everybody is kind of a believer in the Edgar pension ramp, but it's actually the Edgar pension time bomb. And it's been blowing up for the last several years. It should have had this thing fixed by now, but it's made it worse, right? Because he backloaded the payments. And again, a financial lesson, everybody knows that if you're saving money or borrowing money, you want to put the money in up front, right? Do the hard choice and pay down that mortgage quicker, put the money in up front. When you're saving for the future, you want to put as much money in the front because time and interest is your friend or it's your enemy. And right now, it has been our enemy under the Edgar pension time.
Yeah. When I was on Decatur City Council many years ago, and we had some money, and we were facing our pension problems, and we had a good credit rating, I said, what we need to do is borrow the money at these low interest rates and put it into bringing our pension funds, police and fire, bring those pension funds up to where they were 90% funded, and then pay off that debt over 10 years at a really low interest rate while our pension funds were generating good returns. Our city manager obviously didn't like that, didn't want to use our debt to pay off the pensions. Now it's coming back. It's coming back to haunt all of our communities, and it's going to, I think, we're going to be a huge problem in Illinois.
Right, exactly. Gentlemen, let's bring up the last slide here as we close out. This is how everyone can find us, IllinoisFreedomCaucus.org. And if they want to contribute to the cause there, Leader Miller, I know you would appreciate that for our cause as you lead and share this great group of people in the General Assembly. And we're scrolling across the bottom where you can find us also. And gentlemen, with that, Colin, let's go to Colin and then Dan and Chris with some closing thoughts, and then we'll be done for this evening. Colin?
I just want to say, we mentioned taking predictions and these people being so predictable. And something else you're going to see in the wee hours towards adjournment day is you're going to see probably members of the House Republican Party standing up, screaming about how we never saw the budget till the last hour. You never included us in conversations. Why weren't we at the table? Yada, yada, yada. And our position is it's just time to go on the offensive right now. We need to make these people continue to own their lack of transparency and their poor public policy. And so with that, we look forward to fighting for you again in Springfield next week.
Exactly. Dan? Closing thoughts.
Well, thanks again for putting this together and the opportunity to talk to folks. Time to pay attention. Lots of things going on in Springfield. We'll do our best to keep you informed, and we'll continue to fight for what's right and trying to turn Illinois around. And so until next week, we get back in Springfield. Look forward to seeing you guys all in person.
Excellent. Chairman Miller.
Well, I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. This is your home for truth, logic, and common sense. And it's like we say often that the fight for freedom never ends. And I know we're in a real doozy this time to save the state of Illinois from I used to think it's from the liberals, from the radical Democrats, but I think that the battle that we have is crazy versus normal. And so we continue to fight for you. We'll never compromise our values. We'll never give in. We'll never quit fighting. And we can promise you, we will never raise your taxes.
Exactly. Well, and guys, when you talk about crazy, they want to come after our gas-powered leaf blowers. They want to come after our gas-powered stoves. They want to come after our diesel-powered trucks. I mean, nothing is safe in this General Assembly. Nothing ever dies or goes away. They just resurrect it at the most inopportune time, typically calling wee hours of the morning on a holiday weekend when everybody's asleep or out having a good time. This is when this stuff happens. So I just want our viewers to know that we are going to remain vigilant and diligent and do what we need to do to save this state, because it is worth saving. We just need more folks to join this effort because it is worth saving. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask you all to like, share, follow, subscribe to our content, help us overcome the algorithmic gods of the big tech overlords. Man, that's a lot to say. And so, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in tonight. This is your safer, smarter alternative to anything else that may be out there in the ether. And so with that, gentlemen, I'm going to say good night.